National debt. The UK's current national debt is £2.2 trillion. That's over 100% of our gross domestic product, our GDP. National debt is best described as the cumulative overspending by the government, which has built up over a number of years and decades. Think of it like the country's current credit card balance. Although it's not to be confused with the public deficit, which is usually meaning to be the annual shortfall of government income taxes to meet government spending in that particular year. There is a natural tendency for governments to iron out the economic shocks of the economic cycle, crises and unpredictable events. We saw that graphically with the financial crash of 2008 and 9, the pandemic of 2020 and 21, and the more recent high inflation leading to the cost of living crisis in 2022. But in all cases, despite the government believing in free markets, they were expected to step in and inject public money to prevent irreparable damage to the economy. This so-called Keynesian approach to economic recovery is generally regarded as the right thing to do, though. However, the theory is that the borrowing should be repaid in the good times to make sure the public finances balance over that economic cycle are recovered to be in good shape for the next crisis, which inevitably happens. The problem is that we already had a very high national debt before the succession of crises. And there was also what is called a structural deficit, where tax revenues are consistently lower than spending across the entire economic cycle. There are a number of political reasons for this, of course: the constant demand for better public services and the counter-demand for reduced taxation. But ultimately it means that the taxpayer has consistently never paid enough to fund public spending, and the remaining spending has had to be funded through borrowing, which continually adds to that national debt. In short, this means that the baby boomer generation had a lower taxation than they should have had paid in, and better public services than they actually paid for. There is the counter-argument that national debt is a good thing, and investment in infrastructure benefits future generations. But this is a bogus argument on many levels. Firstly, there is the principle that you cannot have taxation without representation. Young people were not able to vote and did not agree to this. Furthermore, the vast majority of national debt has not been to invest in infrastructure for future generations, but was actually spent in crises to bail out banks, the COVID crisis, and fund general under-taxation and overspending by previous generations of taxpayers. And guess who pays for the national debt? Yep, you've guessed it, the young. Not only do they have to pay the annual £42 billion in interest payments just to maintain the debt, they also need to figure out how to actually pay down the actual debt, which is now more than 100% of GDP. Now, of course, the older generation are not entirely responsible for all the national debt. They inherited some smaller amounts of national debt from previous generations to them. The younger generation are also currently undertaxed and receiving public services that they have not fully paid for. Nonetheless, the age difference means that the majority of the national debt is the responsibility of the older generation. So we have assumed it to be around 75% of that. So if you factor in all of the costs of paying off the national debt, plus also the inevitable interest payments over the next 30 years, how much is the intergenerational theft? We calculate it to be £3.3 trillion. Don't forget to press like below and to subscribe to the YouTube channel Intergenerational Theft. And don't forget also that the full report is available to download for free from the website www.intergenerationaltheft.org. Thank you very much.